Hi, everybody. Spring has sprung here in Gainesville, Florida, and although Florida is one of the few states in the US where you can grow food outside pretty well year round, I wanted to celebrate spring by dedicating this video to some things you can do to grow your own food at home, regardless of what kind of space you might have available. If you're pretty new to gardening, I definitely recommend starting with herbs like cilantro, parsley, dill, sage, or rosemary. They work great in a sunny windowsill or under an indoor grow light, and they pack a flavorful punch to your cooking despite their small size. In this video, I'll walk through some tips for starting seeds, caring for seedlings and plants, and harvesting and storing fresh herbs. Full disclosure, I have historically been pretty bad at keeping plants alive and have only recently started to find some success in my own endeavors. But trying out different things has been pretty fun actually, so I hope you'll also find some joy in experimenting for yourself. You'll probably pick up lots of tips along the way that you can pass along to others. Finally, I'll give you a brief tour of the beautiful grounds of Grow Hub, a nonprofit organization providing work opportunities for people facing barriers to entering the workforce, especially individuals with disabilities and veterans. They have extensive gardens and nurseries on the east side of Gainesville where you can purchase plants that are well adapted to growing in our area and even pick up some free pots for growing. I hope you enjoy this month's celebration of plants and find, like I have, that growing is a really rewarding way to deepen your relationship with your food. The first step, of course, is to figure out the approach you'd like to take to gardening. Indoor gardening can be a little challenging, but is very doable if you've got all the building blocks for a well-fed plant. You can grow small plants in containers in a sunny spot, try out microgreens that are quick to be ready for harvest after planting, or, my personal favorite, start a kitchen herb garden. If you've got the space in a yard, on a patio or balcony, or on the grounds of your apartment or condo complex, you can grow outdoors too, using individual pots, raised beds, or planting right into the ground soil depending on your space and land usage rules. Or, if neither of those options works for you, you could look into getting involved with a community garden near you. There might be one at a nearby school or one run by a neighborhood association like the Greater Duval Neighborhood Association here in Gainesville. Once you decide on an approach, you can think through what you'd like to grow and eat. If you're growing indoors, the limiting factors will probably be space more than time of year, so that is one advantage of that approach. Outdoors, there will probably be a bit more space, but it will be important to choose your crops according to the season when they grow best. To help you choose, one regionally specific resource you can check out is the online Florida Gardening Calendar by the UF Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. The next thing to consider is whether you want to grow from seed or from transplants. If you're starting with seeds, you'll need to get and/or understand your soil. Soil is made up of some combination of sand, silt, and clay. These different components have different particle sizes, which makes a difference for how fast water filters through. Different plants have different preferences for how much water they want retained in their soil, so when you've chosen what you want to grow, it's a good idea to check out what kind of soil they do best in. Typically, a good bet is soil that has a pretty even mix of all three, or, if needed, a little heavier on the silt than the other two types. Sandy soil tends to drain a little bit fast, and clay soil tends to be pretty dense for a lot of plants. Other stuff that's around in healthy soil includes decomposed and decomposing plant and animal matter, helped along in the process by microbes. This adds nutrients to the soil that help feed the growing plants. You might also find worms and bugs in outdoor soil, which is actually beneficial because they help aerate the soil and create more space for roots and water to get through, and their waste helps further fertilize the plants. I know this is a lot to consider, but another option for getting your soil ready is to purchase a soil mix from a gardening or home improvement store. There are different kinds you might see, such as potting mix, flower and vegetable mix, or a seed starter mix. You can choose the best one for you based on the approach you've decided on and what you want to grow. Many mixes also come with fertilizer included that will last for several months. Of course, after that time, you'll want to consider adding some form of fertilizer like compost or store-bought plant food. Another great set of resources to help you out throughout this process is information available for free on the internet from University Extension Services, whose job it is to communicate science-based gardening and farming knowledge to the public. When you've got your soil figured out, you'll need some seeds. There are lots of places where you can find them, including in your own kitchen. If you've got dry beans like garbanzos or limas, you can soak them overnight to start the process of germination and then plant them to see if they'll sprout. Some spices like coriander seeds might also germinate in moist soil, so you can try those out as well. You can also open up a bell pepper, collect the seeds from inside, and replant those. If you've got a big pot or a spot outside, you can also cut up a potato that's started to sprout out of the little divots called eyes and plant pieces that have 1 or 2 sprouts going. Another resource for seeds here in Gainesville is the Southern Heritage Seed Collective, managed by Working Food. They help save and preserve seeds for plant varieties that work great in our area. You can order seeds online from the Working Food website or find seed packets at Ward's Supermarket and Grow Hub in East Gainesville. And finally, you can also find seeds at gardening and home improvement stores. When you're getting ready to plant, take a look at the information printed on the seed packet or check online guides from University Extension Services to see how closely plants should be positioned, how much sun they need, and how much water they need. When you're ready to plant, just make sure you've got a container that has decent drainage capabilities. This could be as complicated as this window box with a self-watering system, or as simple as a plastic pot with holes in the bottom which you can set on top of an old tray, cookie sheet, or plastic plate to catch the water that drains out of the bottom. You can direct plant seeds in the ground or into the container you intend for them to end up in. If you want, you can plant several seeds at once and then thin them down as they grow so you can pick the strongest and the healthiest ones. Or, another fun thing you can do to start seeds is to make your own pots from toilet paper rolls. You'll just need scissors, a plastic tray, your soil, and your seeds. Just flatten out the rolls and then fold them in half both ways. Cut them in half and then cut vertical slits halfway up each of the half rolls. This will create tabs on the bottom which you can then fold in on each other to create a sort of box. Fill the box with soil, pressing gently to compress. Then, make a little hole for each seed with your finger, place a seed or 2 in each, and tuck them in. Give them a bit of water to start them germinating, and then wait and watch them sprout until they're big enough to transplant. This is an especially great project to do with kids at home. Once you've got seedlings, either ones you started from seeds or bought ready for transplant, you'll want to pay attention to their sunlight and water needs so that they can continue the process of photosynthesis and make food for themselves. The label that comes with a transplant often has instructions or water and light specifications, so make sure to look over that before getting rid of it. If you're growing indoors, try to find a sunny windowsill, or if you don't have adequate natural light coming in, you could invest in a grow light that provides the full light spectrum, as well as a timer that will mimic the cycle of the sun without your having to turn the light on and off every morning and night. These are available online or from home improvement stores. Also keep an eye on if the plant starts to lean toward the light. If it does that, just turn the container around every so often so that the leaning balances out. For water, just make sure your containers are draining, and you can use sight and touch to monitor how damp the soil is. For many plants, though not all, soil that feels dry to the touch is ready for watering. If you started plants from seeds and want to transplant them into a larger container, pay attention to when what's called the true leaves come in. You'll see on these 2 seedlings that there are 2 different types of leaves on each. Generally, it's a good idea to wait at least until 4 true leaves are in before transplanting a seedling. When you're ready to do that, first make a nice-sized hole where you want the plant to go. Then, very carefully turn the pot upside down and gently squeeze the sides to loosen it from the root system. Then you can just lift it off, turn the plant right side up, and place it into the hole. Cover the roots with soil and press very gently. As a last step, water the transplant into its new home. If you want to start just from the transplant stage, you can find seedlings that are already started from places like grocery stores. Ward's Supermarket has an impressive assortment of seedlings for sale. Farmers markets, especially the Alachua County Farmers Market along 441 in our local area, gardening and home improvement stores, and Grow Hub here in Gainesville. As your plants are growing, check in on them every so often to prune. If you're growing a plant for its leaves, like lettuces and herbs, remove flowers before they bloom, as they take energy away from leaf production and also can affect the taste. If you're growing a plant for its fruit, You might need to help facilitate the process of pollination by hand if you're growing indoors or if you don't have a lot of pollinators like bees or hummingbirds in your area. Some plants won't be able to produce their fruit without the pollen from one plant getting added to the flower of another plant of the same species. For any plant you're growing, remove parts that appear damaged, diseased, or discolored to keep it healthy. A couple other fun projects you might want to try out, especially if you're gardening indoors, is growing microgreens and/or regrowing greens from the tops of root veggies like carrots, beets, or radishes. Microgreens are really young plants that you harvest before the true leaves start coming in. They draw much of their energy from the seeds and are packed full of nutrition. There is a short microgreens demo video on the H.E.A.T Training YouTube page in case you're interested in checking that out. But something I'm trying for the first time is trying to get new roots to sprout from the tops of radishes that still have a little bit of green on top. If this works, I should be able to harvest some radish greens from right in my kitchen. This is an idea I came across on the Fresh Farm Foodprints website, and directions say to cut about an inch from the top, put the tops flat side down in a dish, and fill the dish with water. I'm excited to see how this turns out. And finally, I want to share just a few tips for what to do with herbs once you harvest them. If you're going to use them within several days, you can store them on a kitchen counter in some water just like flowers. Just trim the stems on a little bit of an angle and then make sure there's enough water to cover the bottoms. If you don't want to use them right away, you can dry them for longer term storage. First, rinse them and dry them really well with a paper towel. Remove as much moisture as possible to prevent rotting. I'm also going to store these in a paper bag, which will help keep dust and contaminants off the dill while it's drying, which can take several weeks. If you do this, make sure to punch lots of holes to allow air to flow through easily. Then you can put the herbs in with the stems poking out the top, wrap it all with an elastic, and hang it so the herbs are hanging upside down in a spot where it won't be disturbed. One thing you can do for herbs with larger leaves is to blanch them by covering them with boiling water, leaving them for about a minute, and then transferring them to an ice bath. This will help preserve their nice green color. Then, you can put them into a plastic bag and freeze them until you're ready to use them. Another way to freeze herbs is to chop them up nice and finely, put pinches into an ice cube tray, cover them with water, and put them into the freezer. Then, you've got nicely pre-portioned cubes ready for you when you need them. Here are a few resources you might want to check out and places where I got information and ideas for today's video. This is just a few of the many helpful sources available online, but I hope it's a useful start. And finally, I want to take you through a brief sneak peek of what you'll find if you venture over to Grow Hub, which is located at the very easternmost end of Northeast 8th Avenue in Gainesville. I had a chance to visit and get a young jalapeno plant during one of the plant sales they have Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. A staff member I talked to showed me these large raised beds that would soon be home to lots of edible goodies. They also have an area dedicated to plants native to Florida. But the other varieties they have are also well adapted to the microclimate of East Gainesville, another staff member told me, so they should be relatively easy to grow here with regular care and maintenance. I also got to see a bunch of strawberries that are the result of a partnership with Santa Fe College to develop a special variety, which I thought was pretty cool. If you make it over here, you can also pick up some free pots that you can use in your own home growing adventures. Happy spring, everyone!